Hello everyone and welcome to this episode of Fresh Start. Today I'm joined by Zoe Fleetwood, who is a highly experienced family solicitor and who heads up the children's department in Mills and Reeves solicitors. Zoe is well known for handling really complex cases, including surrogacy, adoption, forced marriages, wardship, abduction, and also the topic that we're going to be talking about today, which is parental alienation. So thank you so much, Zoe, for agreeing to come along and have a chat with us today. It's really great that you're here. Parental alienation, for those who don't know, it'd be great to just sort of understand a little bit more about what we mean by that. I think, you know, just the words themselves, probably most people can get, but just for anyone who's not sure, because it is, I think, any parent's worst nightmare, and especially if you're going through divorce and separation, it's probably the biggest fear that most people have around, you know, the effects the divorce can have on the children. Am I going to lose my children? So it would be great just to hear from you, just to sort of put it in context, this conversation, exactly what is parental alienation and how do you actually identify it if you think that is what you're coming up against.
Okay, thank you first of all, Nicole, for having me here today to speak about this fascinating and difficult subject. Well, I think it's fair to say that the existence and definition of parental alienation has been subject to much debate over the years. Parental alienation is now broadly summarised as a child's resistance or hostility towards one parent, which is unjustified or as a result of psychological manipulation by the other parent. Now, the definition I've just read out is a CAFCAS, Child and Families Court Advisory Support Service definition. So, as with everything, there is context and a spectrum and a range of relevant behaviours before the court can determine that this is a case of parental alienation. So the majority of cases that you and I see, Nicole, are with separating families, and they generally agree on the principle of contact, but they can't agree on the quantum. So you and I support those families, helping those arrangements and make those agreements and putting those arrangements in place. And once they're in place, it's done. The family is moving forward. For other families, there can be allegations of domestic abuse. In the context of cases with allegations of domestic abuse, there are frequently counter allegations of parental alienation. And those cases provide a challenge to us family law professionals in assessing whether a child's rejection or resistance to contact or spending time with a parent. I'm trying to use the word spending time with a parent rather than contact, because my young clients hate the word contact. I've got to break old habits and call it spending time with a parent. But sometimes those reasons for resisting that spending time might be for a legitimate reason or cause, but they might not be. So that takes us on to parental alienation. And it is recognised now by the court, and this is from a quote from the previous President Mumby, that, you know, it's recognised by the courts that the parent can deliberately or inadvertently turn the mind of their child against the other parent so that they hold a wholly negative view of the other parent. So that's what we're talking about with parental alienation, where the child's mind is turned against the other parent to have nothing but a wholly negative view, and they will resist spending time, whether it's been agreed or ordered. I can talk a bit more about what alienating behaviours include.
Yeah, that would be really helpful, I think, just so that, you know, people who suspect that actually that might be the situation they're in, and this is sort of starting to, you know, raise a red flag for them, or they've been feeling that, you know, there's something like this going on, but it's very difficult for them to kind of pin down that that's exactly what's happening. It'd be great to kind of understand a little bit more about the typical atypical behaviours that you tend to see around, you know, parental alienation cases and in the behaviour of the children, and I suppose of the ex-spouse as well.
Okay. All right, so it's been recognised that alienating behaviours by a parent include negative attitudes and behaviours that denigrate, demean, malign or dismiss the other parent. It includes conveying false belief or false stories to the child about the other parent. It includes withholding positive information from the other parent. Sorry, positive information about the other parent to the child. It's that lack of promotion of contact. Parental alienation includes spurning, terrorising, isolating and exploiting a child. These are recognised as very seriously emotionally manipulative and damaging behaviours by a parent towards their own child. It includes not responding appropriately to the child's emotional needs to have a relationship with both parents. So these tactics, these alienating behaviours by a parent, foster a false belief that the parent who has been subject to alienating behaviours is dangerous or unworthy. So that's parental alienation, and it's a real contrast to a parent who resists contact. They think it's unsafe or dangerous because that parent may have experienced domestic abuse, or that parent may be fearful of child abduction. So it's pinning it down requires a careful examination by the court and family law professionals.
Okay, so if someone watching this suspects that actually, some of that's really true, that they think that actually, I think I might be in a situation where I'm being alienated against my children, what can they do? Kind of what are the next steps, or how do these kind of cases, play out? I guess what's the options?
Well, you and I, Nicole, hesitate, and we don't say go straight to court. We say look at mediation, look at reaching an out of court settlement, look at reaching an agreement. With these cases, frequently that's not possible because the alienated parents will not be having contact with their child. So ultimately they do have to issue an application for a child arrangements order. And then the options available to the courts are seeking to promote contact, seeking to manage a relationship in a child-focused way between the alienated child and the parent. And so the range of powers open to the courts are therapeutic options, court orders, enforcement options, Section 37 reports, which is requiring the local authority to intervene and examine whether they're going to take any steps to intervene, public law interventions such as involving social workers and sometimes foster carers, joining in separate representation of the children so that they separate CAFCAS guardians, so that the child's needs are independently represented, separate to the parents. And then the last resort, Nicole, is a transfer of residence of the child.
Right.
And those cases are very serious.
Yeah. So actually, there's actually quite a lot that the court can do, and presumably on quite a wide spectrum as well, depending on the level and the gravity of the parental alienation and the situation at home, and I suppose the damage that's being done to the children.
Yes, generally everyone wants to work with the whole family, so the courts will frequently appoint an expert. Frequently it will need to be a child and adolescent psychiatrist to look at how the child's doing, their needs, and a psychiatrist or a psychologist to assess the parent's needs to meet the parent's ability to meet the needs of the children. Frequently, specialist independent social workers are involved to support contact, and then at times other professionals, therapeutic professionals, are involved to support the parents in changing their habits, for want of a better expression.
Yeah. So dealing with the actual behaviour with the parent who's causing the alienation as opposed to the alienated parent, essentially.
Yes.
Okay, so quite often you'd say it's actually kind of looking at the other professionals and experts. One, I guess, diagnose it, and then to look at what needs to be put in place to try and get that family working together. Okay, and this is, obviously, if you kind of mentioned, we don't like to kind of advocate for courts, but I guess in situations like this, then court is maybe the only option. But we're aware of the time frames associated with going to court. Parental alienation cases, are they sort of subjected to the same sort of long, lengthy time frames as what other sort of settlements and court orders are?
Yes, so as we know, Nicole, the courts are in crisis. Public law children cases are rightly prioritised with their 26 weeks aim of start to finish. Private law cases take longer. It's difficult to get hearings as quickly as you'd like, and in this case, in these cases, you might need a fact-finding hearing. Experts such as specialists recognised child psychiatrists can take 8 to 12 weeks to report. So things don't move that quickly. Alienation can happen very quickly in families after a family breakdown. So there is that disconnect between the situation on the ground, the need for emergency court support and intervention. I mean, there was a case a very interesting case, I thought, of A&A in January 2022 of this year. It was a private law case, and the facts of that case were that it was the summer of 2020, the marriage broke down due to mother's extramarital affair. Mother left the family home. The children very rapidly became alienated against mother and refused to have contact with her. And these are children of only 9 and 12, so not quite old enough, well, of the age where their views and feelings count for a lot, but still, you know, they've had a relationship with their mother for their first 9 to 12 years of their life. And when seen by social workers as to why they didn't want to spend time with mum, they said things like, she left us, she left the family, she broke the family, and that they didn't want to have anything to do with her. And so it's been recognised that sometimes children identify with the parent with whom they are resident and whom they are solely dependent on. So in that case, those 2 children were solely dependent on their father, and their form of protection was to not resist or not come into conflict with their sole resident parent.
Yeah, family caregiver.
And in that case, various interventions were recommended.
Okay. And sort of when you see cases like that, you know, does it get to, I guess, a good end result? Do you kind of see that actually the courts have the right tools and experts available that actually this does kind of get managed through, and that that it does actually help the family in the end?
Well, we like to, you and I as family law professionals like to be optimistic, and we do this job because it's difficult and challenging because we believe in change and believe that families can heal together. But these are some of the most difficult cases, and if you've got a 13 or 14-year-old who is alienated against a parent and wholly resistant to contact, it's very difficult to force them into a car to contact. So the courts will do everything they can. It includes that child being shared with a judgment. There'll be a child appropriate judgment written for that child to say, this is what the judge has decided, this is what the judge has found. There's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't be having a loving, positive relationship with both parents. And that we're expecting your mother or your father, depending on which is the alienating parent. I mean, interestingly, in the January 2022 cases that I looked at recently, they were alienating fathers. It's not always alienating mothers. But children will be involved in that way, spoken to, have a judgment given to them as to what's happening. And sometimes intervention does work, sometimes the threats to a resident parent that you are going to face transfer of residence unless you cooperate with this court order can work. But it's incredibly damaging for a child to have gone through this.
Yeah, of course. It's not, as you say, not an easy thing to deal with. And just on sort of, obviously you've got a lot of experience on parental alienation cases. Are there are all family solicitors able to support on this, or are there sort of specific family solicitors who sort of specialise in these types of cases? Because as you say, it is, they are quite complex cases, and it is, trying to identify the behaviour and then, you know, deal with that through the kind of court system and things like that. So are there kind of particular solicitors that people can look for that would specialise in this type of case?
Well, I suppose, I mean, you would want a very experienced children's solicitor, because there are certain approaches within children's litigation that are advantageous. Getting your case before the right level of judge early on, insisting on where possible judicial continuity, appointing the right experts. Then yes, you would want to look for a very experienced children's solicitor, but all family solicitors are aware of this issue. It's not as controversial as it once was. And you know, I do have faith that, you know, we've got on the National Committee of Resolution, and we have many members, and we're all aware of parental alienation. But I think for a parent going through this, you need a solicitor who is willing to, or has the ability to dedicate their time to pursuing it in the right way. But yes, I mean, lots of solicitors do this kind of work and are aware of it.
Okay, good. So it is a bit more kind of widely known now than, as you say, it
Yes.
was.
Yeah.
That's good.
Similarly to all the aspects of domestic abuse, I think all solicitors are a bit more clued up and sensitive to coercive control than they were perhaps 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's good. You know, it's good that, you know, solicitors are, you know, more aware of that, and you know, the work that Resolution does as well, I think really helps with a lot of that, and you know, the talks and things that I know you and other solicitors, I know your firm in particular, is really very good at kind of putting information out and webinars and things around these types of subjects and cases that you've seen, like the one you referred to earlier this year. So for anyone who does find themselves in this situation, you kind of listen to this and gone, yeah, actually I identify that is the situation I'm in, kind of what would be your sort of key takeaways, you know, for people to remember from this conversation of how they kind of move forward?
I think to act fast. I think to hesitate saying get straight into court, but take it to court so that the alienating behaviours can be named and identified. But I think please remember, I think for parents, to give parents some hope and patience, is there are different ways of having a relationship with your child. You know, if contact has been stopped and you believe frustrated and wrongly terminated by the other parent, there are ways of having a relationship, such as sending appropriate voice notes, emails, letters, gifts, staying in touch with the wider family, sending positive messages that you're following how their progress within school, all those things, so that the child doesn't feel, oh, actually they've gone away, they're exactly like mum or dad said, they're not interested, they don't care. So it's just being careful to counter the narrative that child might be hearing.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Actually, so the child doesn't feel abandonment, or at least your behaviour doesn't sort of evidence what they're being told in the narrative, as you say, what they're being told by the parent, and whilst, as you say, it's a long process to go through court, so I guess it's kind of what you can do in the meantime, which is really important actually, because I think divorce is one of those situations that so many people feel massively disempowered, that everything is outside of their control and it's happening to them. Even if you instigated the divorce, I think still it kind of feels like you're at the mercy really of other people and other factors in settling your personal affairs. So I think that that's really helpful to kind of think about what you can do in the meantime whilst you wait for the kind of the court process to play out. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. So I know we've only really scraped the surface of this really difficult and interesting and challenging subject, but I think it's really important that people have the awareness of kind of what it is, what to look for, and then the advice you've given of kind of what to do next. And I think that that's the best place for people to find some information. There is also, I know that you've sent me before some work that you've done in presentations and stuff for the example that you gave earlier around that case. So I will also share that with everybody as well, so that they can see that. And obviously, if you have any questions, then please get in touch with me. I'll also put Zoe's details up on website, so you can also get in touch with Zoe if you need to follow up with her at all. Thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you everyone for watching.
Thanks so much, Nicole, for having me.